Welcome to this reflection on the final week of the liturgical year and the great feast of Christ the King. I'm constantly intrigued with this feast. Perhaps you are as well. So many images of a king exist in our world, and it is an interesting statement by the church for Jesus to be a king. One of the things that intrigues me the most is Jesus himself wrestling with the title. And yet, as human beings, as a church, as time has gone on and as Christianity has grown and blossomed, there seems to be a natural human element to acknowledge Jesus as a king. And the scriptures always challenge us and sometimes help us. So from our gospel, from John, it's this great dialogue of which I think we're all pretty familiar with, Jesus and Pilate. So first of all, an exhausted Jesus coming in front of Pilate, just emotionally and physically drained, and Pilate asking him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And so that's a pretty specific title of a group of people. The best Jesus can do is challenge Pilate, are you saying this on your own, or are other people asking you to say this? And then Pilate becomes unbelievably defensive. "I am not a Jew," he says. And so you see the tension and the conflict of which Jesus is caught up in. And he ultimately reminds us that his kingdom is not of this world, that at that particular time he has no real followers. He is by himself. He's been disowned, and his supporters and disciples have left him. He is all on his own, humanly. And so he is reminding us in that situation that his kingdom is obviously not of this world. And then he articulates that what is key to his kingdom is testifying to the truth. And so that is all a beautiful complement to our first reading from the prophet Daniel. Daniel, as this faithful youngster, goes into exile in Babylon and is forced, so to speak, to serve Nebuchadnezzar, the king. I just love saying the name. It's a great name, isn't it? Nebuchadnezzar. And then he is with the conquering of Cyrus coming into power, then he serves him. But he serves both of the kings as a faithful member of the holy people of Israel. And so this character, Daniel, gives us an extra challenge of service in the face of a king. And then our second reading from Revelation, and again, this amazing imagery from Revelation that is, so much of it is code. The Christian people at the time not really being able to talk openly about being Christian, and so the symbolism and the code of which they talk, they're inviting us into this imagery of this ruler, of the king of the earth, and ultimately calling him the Alpha and the Omega, as words from God himself, the beginning and the end. And so perhaps our greatest takeaway as Christian people is, as we're bringing another liturgical year to a close, this Omega, so to speak, ending, we're invited to look back on everything that Jesus Christ has meant to us, primarily in this journey of the Gospel of Mark, to acknowledge his kingship of this preceding year, all the imagery that it has brought, and even things from our parish that we have done and accomplished this year, that we acknowledge Jesus as the King of the entire kingdom and us here at Holy Family. So once again, we gather in the name of Christ, our King, a King whose kingdom is not of this world, ultimately inviting us all to think of the important end times and the everlasting life that we are all called to by Christ the King.